Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop of the Board of County Commissioners for this, let's see, this 9th day of August. Would you please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good afternoon, Todd. Again, I'm Jim Candelaria. This is Commissioner Joel Stevenson and Commissioner Lindsay, who just stepped out, which will be back here in just a minute. Today we have a discussion, and it's based on, and I don't know how much or how familiar you are with SRS, Secure Rural Schools funding, that has been, up to this point in time, handed out to us every year. We had information coming out at the beginning of the year that this was the last allocation of the SRS. Last Friday, so just recently, that is now going to be apparently reallocated, and I don't know if it was voted on, but it is supposedly being carried out for possibly the next 2 years until 2023. So, historically, and gentlemen, jump in anytime you want to here, the statute states that we have to give 25% to the schools and 25% to the road and bridge. The other 50% is discretionary. With the commission, after we have sat down and talked to a designee from the school on where to put that allocation. Earlier this year, we had a presentation. Well, it's been presented to us twice now. Once last year in 2020 or 2019.
2019 during the budget.
Just recently from Destination Library and Early Childhood Development. Our request this year was to, since it was the last and final payment of SRS, we wanted to see it go to early childhood development, which was, I think it was ages 1 to 6, which helps prepare them for school within our community. I was able to talk to one of the Dolores school board members. He had no issues, thought it was a great idea. So they're not represented here today, so I'll go by that. I don't know. You're here from Mancos and nobody is here from Cortez. So per the statute, we actually have to sit here and negotiate with you first before an allocation like that can be made. So that's why you're in here today. So gentlemen, I'm gonna let you add, and if not, I'll let you ask questions and we can we'll go from there.
Yeah, just that the Destination Library has requested a one-time funding to build their fund and not come back to us again.
They've also had $100,000 donation from a private donor, along with what we could put in there, and the way they put it together. The Onward Foundation, I think, was the lack of a better term, the funding. Yeah, the overseer of the funds to invest it and then to put the distributions out as they needed it annually. And they felt like that with these funds, then they could carry that on into almost perpetuity, which is early childhood development. It's still education. It's just not specifically to the public schools.
So would that be in lieu of the 25%?
No.
No, you still get that.
You're still, so the 3 school districts are still going to get the 25%. That's
right off the top.
That's off the top, and the road and bridge is going to get the 25% per the statute. The only thing that we can talk about is the other 50%. And if you look at the numbers right here, here was our allocation, the 156,950. 25% obviously Montezuma County, And then it's broken down into each school district, how that's, how you guys get those allocations per RE1, RE4, and RE6.
This was last year's.
Oh, I just didn't change the date at the top
Oh.
there.
So I know the last 2 years that I've been on the commission, we gave the other 50% to the public schools. But we just felt that early childhood development this year, since it was the last year, because if you look, we had, I think it was 2019, your predecessor, he was saying that it's such a little amount, we can't do a lot with it. Not that you can't do something with it, but, there was a discussion. We left it up to them. They came back to us. They said, just leave it as it is, split it how it is between all 3 districts. With this coming out to our last allocation, and basically we have $78,000 that we're dealing with, we just felt that a program into perpetuity for early childhood development was more appropriate.
And that's the destination,
Imagination Library.
Imagination Library.
That's-
Imagination Library. And that'll be housed, that's a physical resource that they're building, a physical.
Imagination
It's-
Library was created by Dolly Parton to
Mhm.
put books in the hands of kids
Oh,
of,
okay.
of certain age groups.
Uh-huh.
And all they have to do is sign up and they send them the book
They send them a new book once a
Yeah.
month.
once a month.
Yep.
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
And it's,
And it's-
it's addressed
The
to
positive
them.
results are amazing.
With our public health department also, I think, has a lot to do with that, as far as having books there on site when kids come in for whatever reason they're coming in for. So that's why the statute says that we have to negotiate with you all first. We still feel that it's going to education. It's just not going to the public schools from where you guys take over it from 6K through 12, which is basically 6 through 12. And I think that's why they're targeting the ages 1 to 6. So,
And representing kind of the part of the county, would we have, would there be equal access to Destination Imagination Library for really the Mancos School District?
it's for the entire
It's-
county.
Yeah.
It's countywide.
Any child 6 and under.
There's no income requirements for that?
No,
Um,
not on the Imagination Library part of it, there's not.
Okay.
Anybody can sign up for that.
So it's for the entire county. It's not just one specific school district at all. Because they're all, we look at them as all our kids.
Yeah,
I mean,
I appreciate that.
you can look at them as just Mancos, but we want to look broader because they really are, we represent all of the people in Montezuma County, so,
I appreciate that perspective. I think that's a really good perspective, and I've had the opportunity to meet with my colleagues at the other 2 school districts, and we've really made a commitment to work together for the good of all Montezuma County students.
They were copied on the same email you responded to, right?
I believe they will.
Yeah, they were.
so, obviously they're not here and that's fine. I realize that they get tied up, but the statute still states that we have to have this conversation prior to the distribution. We've probably already distributed the 25%. Shaq, is that correct or not?
No, Ellen
So-
won't do anything with it until
After
you
we
guys
make
give
this,
direction.
have this conversation today, that distribution can actually be sent out.
That's great.
Which that, will be broken up into the 3 districts which you just saw.
Yeah, and I think, just from my perspective, from being part of this, I can certainly attest to the value of early childhood education, and I think an investment in early childhood education would save our school district money in the future, and it'll also better prepare students to be successful once they do come to our school district. So the allocation of that 50% to early childhood education seems really like a consistent approach and one that's really good for the kids of the county. So it'd be one that towards or, join in.
Okay, well, I really appreciate
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
because
we
we
appreciate that.
definitely felt that, specifically because we were told that this was our last allocation of SRS. Obviously, last Friday it changed, but here again, that can change again because of how they vote in Congress. So, we felt very strongly that this last allocation should go to that for early childhood development.
And the
I-
road and bridge has given up their 25% of that second 50% too for this cause, so
Great.
it'll be that whole 50%
Well,
will go to.
we could actually give 50%, this discretionary 50% to Road and Bridge. So, but early childhood development, because it does help us all, and it does hopefully make us all more successful down the road if we invest in our
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
children.
It has very real impact and very short term for the school districts and the school district, for sure.
So,
Well,
basically,
another
that's
thing
it
we
in a
kinda based on,
nutshell.
too, the schools are getting probably quite a bit of ARP money this year too. So this lack of a little bit of funding shouldn't hurt the school systems.
Right. It's
This
still-
year.
It's additional funding, so, I think that's what we, our per pupil revenue is what we build our budget off of. And we've built our budget as of June 30th for the current year that we're in now. And we have a strong balanced budget. And so, moving forward, your suggestion to serve the preschool age, students makes good sense to me.
Okay,
Well, we sure appreciate it.
Yeah,
We
thank
do
you so much for coming
definitely
in.
appreciate it, but we won't tie up any more of your time. We just, by statute, have to have the conversation, and thank you for agreeing with us the way we saw that, there's a lot of value in that.
Mr.
Did-
Blair and Mr. Lindsay and Mr. Stevens, it's really a pleasure to meet you. Looking forward to meeting you, spending more time with you in the future.
I think we just had one more come in, maybe I'm not sure which one, but, Dr. Blincoe, sorry.
I've been so lost.
That's okay, welcome to town.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, are the schools getting ARP money? American Rescue Plan money? Not that you're aware
ARP
of.
sounds like a new acronym. We've had several other acronyms come our way, like ESSER, 1, 2, and 3, but not ARP. Oh, you know what, I'm sorry, ARP, ESSER's probably a component of ARP.
Which is the American Rescue
Right.
Plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
ESSER's a component of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have, and we've had some really strict guidelines on how we could spend that
Right.
as well,
Mhm.
which hasn't been ideal, and it also hasn't been, best for the school districts. We have timeframes and things we have to spend it on, which isn't necessarily, it's never good when people in Washington DC are telling you what's the best way to spend your money
Yeah.
for the good of your kids.
We-
And that's where we're at.
Now, come on, they did come up with the Every Child Left Behind Act.
Yes.
Oh, here's number 3.
All right.
So,
So we should recap now
Yes,
that
we'll recap. Yeah.
everybody's new,
Okay.
so be patient.
gosh, when I was going to school, I used to get sent
was
to
a
the
tardy
principal's
slip
office
handed out.
for being 15 minutes late, but
We saved our best for last.
Yeah, whatever. So I must say, and I apologize, I really do respect your all's time, but you should have told me there were 2 courthouses.
Me too.
And I went to the other one, so I so apologize, because I do
Oh, that's
really,
right.
oh,
I'm excited to be here, and I love talking about secure rural schools. And, so thank you, and I really do apologize.
I was just
Yeah,
next
no worries.
door on the top walking around.
Okay.
How did you get in?
Next to, front was open.
Oh, because they're
Oh,
doing
the carpet.
they're doing the
The
flooring.
flooring
I'm like,
guys.
how did you get in on that
The
side?
floor, nothing was open. No,
Yeah.
so. We
Well,
know-
then-
We know now.
we will just do a recap. Todd, I apologize for you having to sit through this again.
No, it's always a good day when I get spent time with you all and my colleagues.
I'm so sorry, I just sent you a text.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm sorry, Risha.
So I will make it as
Well,
painless as
let's go
possible.
back to
But again,
introductions.
I am Jim Candelaria, Commissioner Stevenson to my left, and Commissioner Lindsay to my right. We are the 3 Board of County Commissioners that you will be dealing with today and for at least a couple more years. So the SRS funding, Secure Rural Schools, comes to us every year, and this was the last year that it was supposed to be funded. So we had 2 presentations from Imagination Library, one in 2019 and then one earlier this year in 2021. Because it was the last year for the SRS funding to be allocated, we felt that it was more critical and important to take the 50% that was discretionary out of the statute of SRS and put it to early childhood development, which is basically 1 to 6 years old before they start K through 12. So the way this statute reads, and he can bring it up here in a minute, but I want to use these numbers so that you guys can kind of understand. 25% has to go to the public schools and 25% goes to our road and bridge. So that's how those allocations are set out. And then for the schools, it's broken into RE1, RE4, and RE6. The allocation that we have set aside for Imagination Library is $78,475. And like we were talking to Todd earlier, since this was the last time that this was to be funded until last Friday, we just got word last Friday that apparently they've tried to get it in the budget for 2 more years. So we are, per the statute, we are supposed to have this conversation with you all, the public schools, to basically negotiate this allocation of the funding. It can go to Road and Bridge, or it can go to the public schools. We voted after we had a presentation earlier this year that early childhood development was the place that we would like to see it go. It's still
Early childhood development, is that your Imagination Library?
Yes.
correct, which was started by, and you may jump
Yeah.
in here, but Dolly Parton started this. Yep.
We do that in Flagstaff as well,
Yep.
but we do that through the YMCA, is what we have done in the past.
Mhm.
So where is this imaginary library?
It's a nationwide,
So
they sign up for, and each month, a child between basically 0 and 5 and through 5 years of age receive a book once a month. And it induces real, better reading, better quality of reading, better comprehension of reading. And we felt that anything we can do to get kids reading, especially before they enter kindergarten or go to primary school, it's better for everybody.
it's a step up for those kids. And one of the parts of the presentation that really resonates with me is that from, basically up to 6 years old, you are learning to read, and after that you read to learn. And it's critical that reading in early childhood development takes place if we can fund it to help when they get to you all into the public schools. They're hopefully a step ahead and not behind.
And this is basically through one of our foundations here in the county, and it's a one-time ask. And then the Onward Foundation.
Onward will be the overseer of the funding, is probably
Yeah.
the best term.
Can we ask him for some of that money? Because I have a 0-year-old through 6th grade campus. I would have qualified for some of those funds.
Any child under the age of 6 years old is eligible for this. All you have to do is sign up. Your kid, they get 12 books a year.
And our public health department also works with, when some of the kids come in for their immunizations or dental work or whatever they're coming to public health, they actually can sign up there, and then they get enrolled into that program from there. So
And do you have any platforms with that in which to, because sometimes, so what we used to target was like the kind of like the zip code. I know here it's different, but we used to target certain specific neighborhoods that would receive these book allocations.
I can't answer that.
Poverty kids.
Yeah, I cannot answer that.
Right.
I think there is probably something where they try to target
Because
or-
one thing, another piece of that is, you know, building off of it, it's also, it's an opportunity to teach parents how to read to their kids, because
Mhm.
sometimes, like, even the concept of a book, you know, sitting on someone's lap,
Mhm.
you know, the kids that we're trying to reach, generally speaking, have, very little access to high-quality preschool experiences and, literacy opportunities. You know, they have different experiences, but you know, sometimes putting a book in a hand, you know, how can we make it as progressive as possible? And then my question to you is, so like, let's say, the allocations of funds, and I know I got here late, are these, I see that we have 2018, 19, so is 2021 that is above that, is this basically the allocated amount that you're referring to, or like?
These are the
was it
20,
last time?
the 2021 payment is the 156,950.
Okay.
So 25% goes to Montezuma County Road and Bridge, the 39,237.61.
Right,
So that, again, that 25% is going to go to you all, and it's broken down per school district, so you can see the numbers in the blue.
yeah, so is.
Nah,
that's-
that just hasn't been changed in the spreadsheet.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll change that right now. So the only, per the statute, per the CRS
Right,
of SRS, is that
Right.
we are supposed to have a conversation with you all. However, it's waited this long because you all didn't exist.
Welcome to existence.
we're brand new.
You-
I didn't, exactly. So
You were,
we've
yes.
had this, but we haven't had to have a conversation with,
Sorry.
no, it's okay.
Yeah.
The greatness.
We understand.
We're called the Three Amigos, by the way.
We understand. So we wanted to kind of capture you guys and get you in here as soon as possible so that we can get on with what we felt was our duties and following the statute. So,
So I come from Coconino County, Flagstaff,
Mhm.
Arizona, and I was an elected official where I was a county superintendent. And we allocated these funds as well to our schools based off of their Forest Service amounts, and we did the same thing. It was a little different though, because each school was allocated a certain amount of funds, but they got to do whatever they thought they should, like Williams, for example, they used it for transportation of their special education kids. And so, it's interesting to see how we run different, but I am aware and I appreciate you taking the time.
well, thank you. And there again, I'm not familiar with Arizona as far as
Right.
how you get it, but
Yeah,
I don't think there's a restriction on what the allocation, the 25% that we have to give you.
Yeah, I think you
I
can
don't
spend that any way
think you can
want.
do it however you choose.
Right.
So I'm not going to speak to that because I
Right.
can't speak to
Well,
that
I'm excited
intelligently.
to look at the early education piece too.
So Todd stated he liked that. Sounds like you are on board. It's just,
I'm good. I do have a question, is how can we help to see if this can go on for 2 more years? Because we'll take every dollar we can get. Like for instance, I met a week or so ago with Senator Hickenlooper's member of his staff. And, is this something we need to call them up and say, hey, we really could use these dollars, would you, we're all for it?
I think that's,
You know, they've extended it till 2023, but we could bring Chuck Forth in here and say, hey, if we took these next 2 years, how much could you give to the schools in perpetuity?
yeah, I think that would be another conversation that we could have with the Onward Foundation because it is, I mean, the early childhood development, teaching a kid how to read is a pretty big deal.
Oh, yeah.
So I
Well,
think
the
if
good
you
thing
got
about
with,
This library, this is a one-time shot that they're asking for.
Yeah, they're just,
Something that's gonna put them into perpetuity and
So-
not have to come back and ask for more. It's the way they'll invest it and keep this
Next
program
year-
going.
we can do
if
something else.
if SRS truly is funded again, we have to have this conversation next year again.
Okay. Well, we'll
So-
make some calls and make sure that our congresspeople know where we stand. We appreciate
I mean, they're not worried about actually having money. They ran out of that 28 trillion ago. Just tell them to grab another gear on the printer and keep going.
And send it our way.
Exactly.
All right, very good.
So any other questions? Gentlemen?
No, I mean,
And in the
welcome
past-
to Montezuma County, and if
Thank you.
you have any questions of us, just feel free to ask.
I would like and I know I can get it myself, but, I wanna see if I can participate in your meetings, like just as an audience member.
Absolutely.
If you ever need introductions, like if you'd ever like me to come, and I'm not saying you would, but like to come and introduce myself, because, as I mentioned, I work for a county, and I also work with a city and a state, and so it's like, one of the things I want to do is I wanna offer, a relationship between, Montezuma, Cortez, School District RE1. We all serve the same people.
Mm-hmm.
We serve the
We
same
do.
people, we serve the same kids, and, I'm here to help foster, how we can, what I appreciate in listening to you, gentlemen, is the reinvestment of dollars into our kids, because that's what, in 20 years down the line, will show through in numbers, and
Mhm.
we have to ensure that we oversee and take care of all of our kids. And, I look at quality care, and I look at, the opportunity for high-quality preschools, and generally, Cortez is not unique in this, but it's very rare. And if I can meet with families and, faith-based, parents who are raising kids, grandparents who are raising kids, and just home shop like preschools, and kind of say and identify, what does high quality kinder care, 0 to 4, what does it look like before you bring it to us?
Mhm.
And it works hand in hand with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, and, so I really believe in stuff like that. So I'm really excited to be here, and I think, I just want you to know that I'm gonna be around, and I
Good.
want to be around.
Good.
And I wanna listen and I wanna learn, because I know everything about, not everything, but I know a lot about like the history of Arizona and like waterways and all that stuff. It's important to this community as well, and I need to figure it out. If you know of any civic leadership opportunities that, like from a political standpoint,
That's the guy to talk to right there.
so in Arizona it's called Flynn Brown, and that's a civic engagement piece. And so I want to start looking around here, because for me, it's like with these gentlemen, we're going to work on, local, state, and federal. And, as you know, this funding is very important. We've seen what these floods have done to our roads. And,
Mhm.
so I used to live in Colorado in the 90s, and the roads weren't, transportation veins then, as they are now. And now more than ever, for our communities to thrive, we need those roads working, we need the bridges repaired. And so I understand the importance of all of it. I mean, I don't mean I understand the importance of all of it. All of it is a big term, but
And I appreciate that too, because I don't know if a lot of people understand that, but we work with the school districts quite heavily with roads. So our project, we just finished County Road J or 7th Street in Cortez. That was pushed to service the bus barn, which is part of the school district, which gives 2 means of egress for the high school, which was a big deal, not these 2 commissioners, but here in the past, to get that accomplished and get that completed. We worked with the school district and CDOT out on 491, and with some flashing beacons out there. So we really work with the school districts on a lot of their issues that they need with the roads.
When it does
When-
snow, there,
So-
bus
so-
routes are our priority.
You bet.
And bus routes, right. So we do a lot with our road and bridge department for schools, and that is a priority, to hit all the bus routes, the very
So-
first thing.
Is it fair to say that Zoom and distance learning has forever ruined snow days for children?
I think so.
Maybe, yeah, good thought.
unless
So-
you're like K2
Oh, okay.
Parents are thankful for that too.
So
I'm
you
sure.
You
can,
can go to school any day, you just have that, this thing up right here.
Well,
Yeah.
that's part of, we're working to fund that so we can reach everybody in Montezuma County.
which is broadband.
Yeah,
We're
broadband, we're still
putting a lot
behind the
into
curve.
that.
You know, that just speaks volumes as to really trying to educate our whole community, because that is the link, let's face it, today's kids, as long as there's a little broadband, they can get on, for better or for worse, I might add.
Right.
There is that, but
But yes, it helps, so I appreciate y'all, always keeping that in mind.
and I appreciate you guys knowing that what we have to do with our roads and bridge just to get kids to and from. It is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
We were talking about a bridge we're trying to fix just last week, and it's a big deal. It serves a big westerly part of our community that comes into the district.
You know, when I was in Page, y'all been to Page?
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in Page, that road broke, 89.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One day at like 5 a.m., the switchbacks that go from Page to like Marble Canyon area or towards Flagstaff, it literally went like this.
Mm-hmm.
And what it did to our economy and to Page and all the people who work and share those roads to get to work, because we travel just like here. And it's, the Southwest is a little different. There's sometimes the other road is hours and hours away, and so I think anything preventative to keep things running. I know floods don't count because you can't control that, or fire, but
Well, we have a natural situation going on down County Road G at mile marker 21, and it's a slip. The road is, the McElmo Creek
yeah.
is kind of eroded away close to the edge, and there's water coming under it. So the road is in jeopardy, so we've been working on that to get it engineered and stabilized, because then it cuts off that whole western boundary there, and the only way to get back to us would be to go Highway 41 to 160 and then back up 491. So it really is a big deal, and I really appreciate you guys understanding what has to happen on roads and bridges too. So
Well, and that's why I want to sit in here and listen.
we are,
And our regular meetings, our workshops are Mondays at 1:30, and our regular BOCC meetings are Tuesdays, starting at 9 a.m. I'm not sure how well that fits into your
but you can
schedule.
walk,
Every week.
Every
it's
week.
every week. You can watch us live.
If I show up or just walk.
No, you're always welcome to just show up.
Yeah.
You can pull up the agenda, and you can also watch us live. You're live right now,
Tuesday is.
our regular
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
You're out in YouTube
9 o'clock.
land right now.
And it's all,
You're being aired live.
if you ever want to watch it after the fact, it's all on our YouTube channel as well.
Wow. Yeah, this past weekend, I was visiting with somebody, and they were like, can you believe what's going on I-70? I was like, what's going on? And I'm not blaming myself, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I'm blaming a news that's right across the border that doesn't, even though we get their signal, they don't know we exist. And so,
Welcome to the club.
thank you. And I'm like, they never speak of it. I don't know if they know Colorado exists, but they don't speak of us. That's all the news I get.
They,
Well, all of that truck traffic that I-70 usually gets is coming right through here now,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
because they're turning them from Moab this way,
Yeah.
so.
so just for your information, if you get just a basic antenna, you can actually pick up all the Denver stations, which I do, and I watch them every day.
All right, very good.
So you are connected with Colorado, you just have to,
Well, my
Go
late
to-
go to a
arrival
different-
in this county has me living at Westview RV Park. So I just plugged in my little wire.
Sure.
So I get what I get.
and you get Albuquerque.
But,
Yeah.
I probably could put up the antenna.
We've
Yep.
been-
Yeah,
we've been
you
fighting
could get
that for a
both, and you
long
could
time.
watch the Denver Road Report and then the Albuquerque Homicide Report, and you'll be
Oh,
good to
that's so
go.
fascinating.
So are we your Monday 1:30 meeting?
Today, yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're not the whole thing. There's
No.
more on the
Okay.
agenda after you,
No,
but
but still, I just made that connection.
yeah. So,
All right, we'll let y'all get on to other business.
That's,
All right,
that's
thank you.
perfect.
Thank
And
y'all
again,
so
welcome
much.
here. thank you all.
Yes.
Again, we
Yes,
would have
thank you
had
very
this
much.
discussion earlier, but like I said, you did not exist. So,
So welcome to the team.
All right, thank you.
thank you, guys.
And I'm a Blue Jay alumni, so go Blue Jays.
And the rest
Right,
of us
Joel?
are Panthers.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Cody Sprague, Mr. Composting Toilets.
And does that mic have any battery left in it? Tap it. Trying.
Wasn't even on.
Success.
So primarily, I'm just looking for direction on composting toilets for the most part. And so I know historically, composting toilets have not been allowed. And there has been a renewed interest in composting toilets statewide and especially countywide, just based off the number of inquiries that I've received, phone calls that I've received. And basically, in response to that, the state released this document. And so what you're looking at is kind of the larger scope regulation. There was like a one-page front and back that the state sent out. Basically, it was just clarification for the installing of composting toilets. And in this document, let's see, fourth paragraph down, it says, subsequently, local agencies may choose to allow composting toilets in accordance with the criteria within Regulation 43, or they may choose to restrict their use as appropriate. And it's kind of on the last paragraph on the first page.
So,
And it's not this document.
So I have a question. I think I have the right document that's pulled up. In the composting toilet installations, they are addressed by the Colorado Plumbing Board, correct?
Yeah, they're
So-
included in the plumbing.
So within that jurisdiction of the IRC, it would be up to the local jurisdiction of the plumbing code to inspect those?
I believe so. I know that I wouldn't, I know it wouldn't be me that's inspecting it. Basically, my kind of inclusion with it is for Regulation 43 in regards to, OWTS, the on-site wastewater treatment in the county.
Correct. And as you read farther, it does state that it still has to have the OWTS.
Correct. Yep.
So what are we achieving by a composting toilet or incinerator and still having the OWTS? I guess I'm a little, it seems vague to me. What are we
Absolutely.
accomplishing?
So, good question. So, in the state of Colorado, you are, well, I guess, in some jurisdictions, according to the plumbing code, you're technically allowed to have a composting toilet, but in accordance with Regulation 43, which is statewide, you also have to have a fully functioning, engineered, certified OWTS system as well. And so I agree with you. For me personally, and professionally, the headache and the inquiries that come with composting toilets, especially in an area where we have a miserable winter that, lasts, at least 6 months, and nobody's going to really be using a composting toilet when it's freezing cold, when they also are still required to have a fully functioning on-site
Wastewater
a septic
treatment
system.
And I guess that was my biggest takeaway. I'm like, well, wait a minute.
Why
I
do
thought the
both?
whole
Yep.
purpose of it was because then you didn't have to deal with the water and the septic system. And
Yep, and that's not the case.
so if it was just put gray water in and then be able to utilize gray water, however, that's not permissible.
Correct.
So, I mean, what are the requests for it and why?
So, overwhelmingly, they are just folks that, for some reason, they really love composting toilets. They're like, and I educate folks to, even if you were technically allowed a composting toilet, you'd still have to you'd have to have a fully functioning permitted septic system.
Right.
And so you'd have to pay the engineer to design a septic system, you have to pay an engineer to design a composting toilet, you have to pay an installer to install a septic system, pay an installer to install a composting toilet, and then you still you still have to have all your wastewater going through the OWTS. And so really it's, you know, I didn't make the laws, but to me it basically seems kind of like a catch-all. Like, oh, if somebody wants to have a composting toilet, potentially, but we're still going to make sure that they have a fully functioning engineered OWTS system, because historically composting toilets are very difficult to maintain. Folks have something in their brain and they think a composting toilet is going to be like a really pleasant thing that just takes care of itself and it's going to work magically. And in a perfect world, it might. But our world is far from perfect. And folks don't realize that every 2 weeks they have to shovel their own waste out of the back of their composting toilet. And according to EPA, you're not even supposed to use that waste on your vegetables. It can only be used on non-edible plants.
Correct.
And one of my other concerns is, given the huge, most of the folks that want a composting toilet also express interest in, either doing like the Cottage Food Act, so they're growing produce and they're baking their own bread and selling it at farmers markets and stuff like that. And part of that dream includes a composting toilet for some reason, for nearly all folks that I've talked with. And from my perspective, it's kind of a conflict of interest, because I don't want to chance that they are using their compost, in their vegetable garden, exactly. And so this little document, it's sufficiently vague, but I just want to make sure that, I'm not necessarily sure if we need something on the books, if this document suffices, and I'd heard from my predecessor, but I also just, figured now is a time to rediscuss it, because nearly every person I've talked to has also said, well, we'll talk to the county commissioners. We're going to make them see the light and the joy of composting toilets. And I'm like, you're more than welcome to do that. And so I don't know if you all have received any inquiries, but I've probably gotten...
That would be a magic trick.
I have received no phone calls, emails,
Nothing.
personally,
Okay.
on composting toilets. I think once you read the regulation, and I kind of had to laugh where they talked about hauling it out on mules in here, and
Yeah.
that creation of that
Yeah, no,
disaster.
yeah.
And I'm like, when you still have to have the OWTS there, you're not really achieving
You're not
anything.
achieving anything.
Yes,
So
I agree.
other than a bigger and greater cost. So for me personally, I think we would be opening potential hazards that are actually true hazards.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, that's my concern as well, because the wonderful thing about, a septic system and really all of the, approved OWTS systems is there's no physical handling of human waste, which, science, as far back as science, has even been a word, has been the most effective way to keep people from getting sick, is to prevent directly handling, their own sewage. And composting toilets basically reintroduces that metric, and and to me that, folks, they don't necessarily understand what goes into that. And even folks that may have done the research, I think, it's not really my job to worry about individuals, I worry about populations. And, in this case specifically, the entire population of Montezuma County. And like I said, with farmers markets, really in the state of Colorado, folks are incentivized to have an OWTS anyway, so it's kind of redundant and expensive and dangerous.
I would say at this present time, for less than 1/8 of 1% of our entire population, if even that much, because I have had no
I
request.
haven't had any yet.
I have it.
Oh, well,
That
I
it's-
mean, that's
That it
news.
is not.
You're getting all the calls.
Yeah, they're beating down my door. I'm serious. Like, I was like looking for any sort of direction, and I was like, oh
At
gosh.
this present time, and again, I know we're not making a decision, I'm just giving you my input, that I don't think I would entertain it right now, because I don't think we're in a remote enough area that we don't have water to everybody. And if you have to have the OWTS anyway, it's really just, I think we're gonna open up a potential for more hazard than we are good for one or two. And are there probably some out there that we don't even know about? There probably are.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion, and I'm gonna let these gentlemen
No,
speak
I
for
feel the
themselves.
same.
I worry about what they're gonna do with the waste. You know,
Yeah.
even if they apply it to a field, well, we still got a lot of adjudicated water being filed on,
True.
and it could find its way into some of that water.
Well, and the big assumption with a composting toilet is that it's working correctly. If it's not working correctly, they're just shoveling,
Yeah.
you know, concentrated right on top of something that, you know, you're right, might find its way into somebody's mouth, which
I
is,
think, I understand the composting toilets, I truly get it, but I don't think we're quite there, and we're definitely not remote enough to where we're in a mountain village where there is just
no water.
water, there's no
No
way to
plumbing,
take care of
yeah.
anything. I mean,
One for the complaints alone, you know, I already receive a plethora of complaints about, you know, septic systems, you know, let alone a composting toilet that's
toilet.
not even, you know, underground.
yeah. So I would,
And, I mean, the landfill already composts the biosolids from the sanitation district.
Mm.
And so if somebody was living out where they don't have an OWTS and they had like an RV situation, if they come to town and dump that, it's gonna be composted anyway.
I actually didn't know that. That's good to know.
so we are really, our composting is taking place with like,
Yeah, large.
But it
Jack
meets
said.
time and temperature requirements.
but it does
kills
meet
Yeah.
the
time and
pathogens.
temperature,
And-
and that's the key.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true compost that's
Yeah.
time and temperature tested.
Cool.
And it's, then we can say, yeah, here's the data, and it has met the criteria
And
for
and
true
we do
composting.
send that all off to a lab. It's tested for, you know, E. coli, fecal coliform, viable hematomas.
All the metals.
Yeah, the recreate metals.
Okay,
all-
that's actually really good,
So-
because that's
Phosphorus,
definitely something I
nitrogen.
would be more than happy to
And
to
if
pass
they're
on to
wanting
folks.
to purchase compost, send them to our landfill, although we may be out this year due to the lack of water, but we do produce it, and we're in the process of making a new field. Won't get done this year, but we will get a portion of it accomplished with the dirt work to get the field leveled off to start hopefully next year if we have some water.
Cool, I
So-
mean, that's phenomenal.
If they're looking at it in that regards to use the composting, we have it, and it's very inexpensive. I think it's like less than $30 a cubic yard.
Okay, cool, that's great news.
So that's how I feel.
Yeah.
And I haven't
Not
talked
that
to
you
any
don't
of
have
the
enough to do now anyway.
state inspectors that would actually be inspecting this. The way I read that, am I correct?
So, and it's kind of more gray area because it's not, so the Regulation 43, it only expresses their technical allowance, you know, basically in compliance with Regulation 43, having the OWTS. But as far as who would inspect it, I honestly don't even, you know, it would fall on a plumber somewhere. I don't know if it had, you know, I honestly don't.
Well, all the plumbers get inspected by a state inspector in this county.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying under the IRC, that falls
On
under
them,
the state
yeah.
inspector.
Yes,
Through
yep, I do
DORA.
believe that's correct. And so I guess in that regard, it would probably be larger than just me. I just know that I've probably received 12 inquiries just last week, and I was like, I gotta get
Where,
this.
zip code, where are they from?
Mancos, Dolores, Cortez, I mean, you know, all the way up. Yeah, actually, I've had quite a few in Dolores County, specifically, you know, kind of along the Dolores River.
County, you need to go talk to 3 guys north.
Well, that's true, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, same, lots in Mancos. It's just kind of, but I mean, yeah, no, this is kind of you just needed, some direction, and this is super helpful for me
Well, I
because
don't know why you would want to put in a composting toilet if you have to follow the OWTS along with it. That defeats the purpose of it.
So you have options, Joel, so you have
So you-
options.
yeah, it's all about options. All right, well, thank you all very much.
I think we've given you some direction.
Yes, you have indeed. Appreciate it.
And we have a lot of composting
Yeah.
that's being made that meets time, temperature, and tested.
And yeah, and that's really kind of the big key, because for these individual composting toilets, they're not gonna temperature check it. And theoretically, it's supposed to get there, but add a little too much water, and then it won't get up to temperature. Take a little water away, and you might have some other hot issues. So
Yep. They can be a hazard.
Oh,
And
yeah.
It could be a fire hazard too if you get it above the 160 degrees or 65, wherever it starts to.
150 is where we turn it, but I don't know that they let their piles get quite big enough to maintain that temperature.
yeah.
Our piles get rather large at the landfill, and they actually physically turn them. And that's a pretty neat operation. If you've never seen it, Public Health should probably go look at that so you can start selling a lot more composting for us.
Oh, sounds good.
All right.
Shot can take me out there and
Yep.
show me how it's done.
You can do an inspection while you're there.
I think you all just have one. The other day, I was with the one of the state. They did tires for me, but cool. Well, thank you all very much.
All right.
You bet.
Thank you.
Cody.
Thanks, Cody.
Okay, Shaq, what do we have next here?
Next, we have water board discussions. Who you guys want to put on them? That's a discussion for y'all, so.
Well, gentlemen, I mean,
We've got 2 or 3 pretty good people that are wanting on there.
No, under normal circumstances, I would say let's advertise it and see who has the interest and then see who has the best background. However, I think we got some meetings next week that they need to be at. Or you could propose an interim today and still go through the
Well,
process.
and I guess maybe that's where, we have talked about that a little bit. If we have an interim, a staffer maybe that can, like James, I'll use his name, to be the interim, just to capture these next meetings that are coming up relatively quickly, and then see if we can't advertise it and see who would be the best option. I mean, I really don't know.
See what
What do you
happens.
guys?
Put it out there and see what we get. We may find somebody, we may not.
But in the interim,
Use James as the interim.
use James so that we don't miss any of the meetings.
Yeah,
Are you guys, I mean,
I'm
think
good
so,
with
and then
that.
just put it out and see who
Yeah.
we get.
Yeah,
and then we can interview them and actually see what
Right,
kind of their background, their history, their knowledge,
right.
and go from there. But we still have a representative for the next coming up meetings, if we do that. So I think we all agree then that James would be our interim until we find a permanent position or a person for that position.
Okay,
Okay?
fair enough.
So would we advertise that? Obviously, all of our local places, our website, Facebook,
Yeah, the
through
journal,
through the
the
paper.
radio stations. I'll make sure Vicky hears that.
I'm sure we can probably get Vicky to hear that.
she's wired in, man.
Okay, and then the last item I have today is Department of Social Services FTE request. She was here a couple of weeks ago, and you guys asked for time to think about her request for 2 to 3
She actually
positions.
asked, was it 2 or 3?
Well, by the end of the deal, it was 3.
Yeah,
It
That's
started
what I
out as 2 and then ended up with the 3rd one there towards the end.
So I don't know if you guys are leaning one way or the other. Obviously, you can't make the official decision today, but you guys can
No, but we can
discuss
discuss it. So, I know that, can't think of her name, but I appreciate the 30-plus years she's put in, but I realize that she is going to retire soon,
it. Mhm.
or she, relatively soon.
right.
But we do have to have enough time to train somebody and/or get somebody in that position to take it. So do we actually have a,
Well, we can approve that as a continuance of operations without giving a full-time employee in perpetuity.
Right. But having the person, so she can identify the fraud, but having the person to collect the fraud was the next one?
Yes, and that's.
Which I think is the bigger
the biggest,
component.
Yeah.
Well, and I think she was thinking of combining those two originally, right? And then the other ask was for someone in child protection.
I guess so. I have to go back and look at my notes, but
Well, it's not doing her job any good to do everything that she does and then we don't collect it,
Right.
so.
That's where my focus would be.
and I think the fraud is just going to get greater, and I think that we need to decrease this fraud. It's taking place, and it's not fair to all of the taxpayers in our county or anywhere to allow the fraud to go on. So the person that is the collector, I think, is even more critical, or is at least equal to the person identifying the fraud.
Yeah.
My concern, though, is she said she had 119. Was that the number?
I think
It was
so.
it was 100 plus of cases that she still has to deal with. Again, I don't know how long it takes to deal with a case, but that could be growing larger right now. as
I'm
we're-
sure it
as
is.
we're sitting here.
I'm sure it is.
So what does the FTE cost us? How is this mostly a pass through from the
An
state?
FTE at that level with benefits is gonna be roughly 52 to 55,000. And it would come out to roughly 80% of the state, and the other 20% would come out of the mill levy that
Their
they
mill
get,
levy.
the 8/10 of a mill levy they get.
So doing that, do we have that, Shaq, money-wise?
So I don't see social services budget as often, so I don't have that as memorized.
So we're looking at probably between $10,000 and $12,000 is what it's going to cost out of the mill levy
Right.
that we
For
collect.
one.
That we collect for one. So if we do that times 3, it would be 36,000.
And if we have somebody collecting some of this, wouldn't they pay some of that back? Wouldn't this,
Well, it would probably go back to the state, and that's
Yeah,
where
Go back to the state as restitution.
And
Gina would be able to answer those questions. I think,
And how successful is it
yeah.
collecting from those types of clients? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know
Well, it's
either.
probably not very successful at all. The collection part of it,
You never know.
they don't.
But what does happen is if there's a conviction on that, then they're ineligible for benefits for
Right.
X amount of time, and maybe we slow the bleed.
Slow the bleed, yeah.
I think it's worth a shot. I really do. To have just one fraud investigator for all this time.
is
Well, we
And it isn't.
definitely need to
With
have her
with the
train
increases in
somebody.
cases we have, there's gotta be an increase in fraud, so. That's where I'm at.
I think you're correct. I think the fraud is probably going to.
Okay, then I'm gonna throw this out here as a matter of logistics, although it's not your problem, it will come back and be my problem. Where are you gonna put them?
Well, let's ask Gina that question. I think, call her down here. Gina, if you're listening, come on down, because we need you in this discussion. So there should be enough room between upstairs or downstairs, correct? Where?
All the office, I got people hanging out in corners for offices right now. Well, that's just one of them.
How much space do they actually need?
8 by 10, if that.
Okay, so typical cubicle type like they have upstairs in their cubicles?
Yep, and we've got the upstairs divided between, on long-term care for the health department and, the social services already. So we've already got two of them crammed together up
You
there.
know, if she's not up there right now and she may not be listening, but why don't we,
I mean, it's not an unsolvable problem, but it is a problem we're running into more and more.
right, logistically, where are we gonna go?
Yeah. Which that'll end up being my issue, but
Well,
if you guys make the decision, then I'll find somewhere.
what about that room we looked at the other day? You could put 3 cubicles in there, and that still is part of child protection, correct?
Yeah, and what you're talking about though,
Was that
fraud
break room?
investigation is up on the 3rd floor.
We could cut
But
this
they
room in
do,
half.
I do believe she's asking for somebody for CPS also. And given the unfortunate nature of things we've seen this spring and summer,
I would say let's say that we are definitely interested in it. We just need to logistically find out how are we gonna handle it before we make a final decision on how to approach it. Because I think we're all agreeing that the person to get trained to do the fraud investigation and then the person to collect it, or if we can combine it, that even makes more sense. But with 100+ cases that are sitting already waiting, I'm not sure one person is enough to do both. I think you're gonna do 2 things and not be able to get either one of them really accomplished. Okay,
Okay.
all
no
right.
responses from her?
Nope.
Okay, we'll work that out. We can't make a decision today, but I think that's a discussion where we're headed. And we'll just figure out the logistical part of
Yeah.
it before we move. And there was another request too for space, but the DA found all their space, correct?
Correct.
They're
So-
staying in the building that they were in?
Yep. So,
Okay,
yeah, they gave him that lease in perpetuity, well, it,
for a long period of time now.
yeah,
Okay,
Mitchell made him a good deal. So,
all right. Well, gentlemen, actually, gosh, that was amazingly quick. But I hear a door opening, which could be,
Gina could be
Gina.
on her way.
Could
so
be.
we'll wait. We'll wait to see who comes around the corner before we
She'll
get out
be
of
coming
here.
around the corner when she comes.
And look who it
Look
is.
who it is.
Look who's listening.
Well, come up here and sit down. That's your choice. You stand.
Just make sure the microphone's on wherever you are.
That is entirely up to you whether you'd like to sit or
Yes,
stand.
you can, either, whatever makes you comfortable.
Am I correct, first of all, that you wanted a CPS employee and a enforcement fraud investigator employee?
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Morning.
Oh, let me catch my breath.
So logistically, we're kind of discussing your FTE request. We didn't want to make a decision, obviously, the day you pitched it, but now we're discussing it.
Okay.
So logistics, where would we even put these people? Where are they going to be housed? How are they going to be housed? Before we even make a decision on what we actually truly need.
The screener would be housed in the child protection 2nd floor. There's a cubby back there, and there's also an extra room where a caseworker used to be, and it's empty right now. It's by the vault,
Oh,
by the 2nd vault where all the Pampers and the clothing is. That's where our former caseworker used to sit. Her name was Cherie. So there's space for that employee. And then for the fraud investigator, I'm still looking at a space for that person. I would really like to use the third floor space with the office that's back there in the corner that Public Health Department currently has. But I don't see it being used for full FTE. And that's where I would like to put that person, because that person would be closer to Radonna, who does fraud investigation, and could better train that person. Or the second issue, if that cannot be used, I would have Radonna co-share her office. It would be a crunch, but we would make it happen.
And for the fraud investigation / enforcement, your ask is 1 FTE or 2 FTEs?
Well, we already have one FTE. That's Radonna, and she's going to be here for the next 2 years. And that FTE will remain the same, because we actually need 2 people in that role, because we never did have an enforcer in our county, and we really need somebody to collect, like you said. And for that position, I was looking at starting pay would probably be $39,000 a year, which is 80/20. So the county would be, it would be 20% would be $8,000 for that position. The state would cover the rest.
We were just doing some rough math, figuring between 11 and 12,000 per employee by the time we figure benefits and everything.
I was doing rough math too, and for the screener, for the visitation caseworker, we're looking at starting pay would be $35,131, and the 80/20 part, the 20% would be $7,000. So if you add the $7,000 plus $8,000, that's $15,000, basically. For both
So it
positions.
is really just 2, not the 3.
There's only 2, the fraud investigator and the screener for visitation.
And would this fraud investigator that would also be doing enforcement at the time of the current investigator's retirement, would you hire somebody just to do enforcement at that point?
We need both roles to be the enforcement part of it and the collector part of it. So if you're looking at keeping Radonna's position, she would continue to do what she's doing now.
For the investigation.
And for the investigation, verification, etc. Then we have the bill collector. So that person, when Radonna leaves, that person could either stay as the bill collector, but I'd like to see that person move into the investigator and also do bill collecting at the same time training the second person, the new person that comes on board.
So what does this bill collecting look like? Is it a series of phone calls, or do they like show up at the door with a baseball bat and say, pay the doctor?
Shaq, since we've never had one, and I would use Mesa County as our go-to county, and I would like to have that person be trained and go to Mesa County because they have a quite robust fraud investigation unit in Mesa County, and they work with their DA's office. They have 2 county attorneys that help them go through the prosecution piece of it. So I think there's a lot of training involved. I can't tell you specifically what that would look like, Shaq, but we'll get there.
I
So
like
are
the
they all
baseball bat.
6'6", 250, the collectors?
That was a size and weight
6'6",
reference.
250 pounds.
Are we
They're all-
sending linebackers after?
We're going to hire you. Are you 6'6"?
I'm not.
You forget about it.
I'm short.
But anyway, I think this has been much needed for probably the last year or so. And the visitation piece has been needed for the past year. So, and I don't want to wait into the new budget because we have the monies available according to our finance officer. I'd like to post those positions as soon as we can get approval from our
Well, you have
BOCCs.
time to get with Shaq to figure out the logistical part of it. The rest of the day, we can't make a decision tomorrow. We won't today. Obviously,
Okay.
we're not in a
Okay,
meeting that we can make decisions today. We can only discuss it.
okay, that's fine. Anything else you would like
And
to?
if you can come up with that that's adequate so that it actually is going to be a long, long-term, long time where they're going to be, then we can have that discussion tomorrow.
Logistically, it will work out because I had 2 long-term technicians sharing the same room up on the 3rd floor. They shared that room for a good 2 years and it worked well. So if Radana, if the need be, and we can't use the PhD room, which is basically the social services department area, and whatever happened when the former director was here, he gave up that space to PhD, but I don't see that back office being used, and I would like to use that back office.
Okay. Well, that's a logistical part you guys figured out, and then you can bring it back to us tomorrow. And we can.
Oh, I'm going to come back tomorrow?
No, I
Unfinished
will.
business? No.
Yeah, you don't need to come back.
Okay.
You don't have to.
Unless you just want to hang out. We're fun to hang out with. Well, I'm fun to hang out with. These guys are here too.
It would be a conversation that we'll put under unfinished business.
Okay.
So if you want to watch and come down to plead your case.
I have
you want to?
I have a scheduled presentation to another board of directors, so I probably won't be able to come.
Okay. Well,
Shaq will have it under control.
we'll go from there. So basically, we're looking at $15,000.
We did just build a new room on the south side of the building.
I'm not going to respond to that. I can imagine what you're thinking of.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for you, Gina.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time to consider this need. Appreciate it.
Yepers.
Some giveth and some taketh away. Thank you, Gina.
See
See
ya.
ya.
Just don't take mine away.
That's what they all say.
All right. What else have you got, Shaq?
That's it.
Okay.
Till tomorrow.
Till tomorrow. All right, gentlemen. Well, gosh, that was a whirlwind, fast meeting. We have an engagement we were invited to at
5
5
o'clock.
or 5:30.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Next door.
Yes.
And that was Chris Lopez and
Chaffa and the
Chaffa.
museum folks and
so we've got basically time to kill.
2 hours.
2 hours.
there you go.
All
All
right.
right, let me know when you
All
want
right.
to go.
Well,
on.
guys, I guess we're done with our discussion for today unless you have anything else to add.
Nope.
All right. We are
We go
We're
now.
done.